Welcome to Amateur Redneck Workshop. I'm Harold, the world's greatest redneck, and here lately my co-conspirators in YouTube have been making videos showing tools they made. So it's my turn, alright? So that's what this video is going to be about today. There's no action in it, there's just me showing the tools that I made and telling you a little bit about them, alright? And we'll start with one of my first projects. In the beginning there was Mr. Pete, and Mr. Pete taught me how to make gears, and I saw the gears and I thought they're good, you know. So I decided I wanted to make gears. I got me a rotary table, but the one thing I didn't have was a tailstock, or whatever you want to call it. I call this a tailstock for the rotary table. Some people do and some don't. So I got busy and I cast this little booger in a bucket of sand instead of in the usual manner, and took me a couple tries. First time the sand was too dry, but then I got her out of there and I machined it. The little point is dead on in line with the center of my rotary table, and it all come out just perfect, you know. And so the next thing I did was I made some gears, and I got to reading my my manual with my Craftsman lathe, and it was talking about you could order gears that would allow you to use the gearbox that's already on it, quick change gearbox, to cut metric threads. So I read up about those gears and I made some. I'll show you that. So to make almost all of the different pitches of metric threads takes a lot of gears. So I made all these gears that you see here, and there's quite a lot of them. Let's see, that's 3 gears there, 6, 9. I made 10 gears for the Craftsman lathe, and for the demonstration I cut a 1.5 millimeter lead in I think it was about a 13 millimeter, 12, something like that, bolt, and it works just right with a factory made metric nut. So I was really happy with that. I rarely ever have the need to cut metric threads, but I enjoyed making the gears and setting the lathe up so it could actually use them. And then I noticed all these guys with these belt grinders. They were making knives and things, a lot of them. And I thought, well, that would probably be just the very handiest thing to have. So I got the Jeremy Schmidt plans for this, and I deviated from his plans because there's nothing I ever make from some plans that I don't deviate quite a lot. But he had welded up, you know, these tubes out of 1/2 inch by 2 inch flat bar, and I just used hollow tubing, which I like better. I didn't have to do that much welding. It's a lot of work cutting all those little round pieces and the ears and things out with a bandsaw and using a bench grinder to shape them out right. I really needed a belt grinder to make the belt grinder. But all the wheels here, all 4 of those wheels are wheels that I cast. Okay, and the first one that I cast for the big one here didn't work out. I had to go back and cast it over again. But the little one, it worked out just fine right off. And it's easier to cast it than buy a great big chunk of round aluminum to cut that off of. A lot cheaper. And although I haven't had the need to flame cut anything since the 1970s, I saw these CNC machines on the YouTube, and I thought, well, I bet a CNC plasma table would be the easiest project you could have. So that was another thing I made. I sat down and I learned a lot by building this, because I'd never touched a plasma torch in my whole life before I got started this project. So I bought a real cheapie. It was a 3-purpose machine. It had a plasma function and a TIG welding function and a stick welder, and it wasn't good enough to actually make a plasma table with. So I bought that much better green machine down below. All right, and that's an Everlast. And I didn't realize that you absolutely had to have a torch height control because the metal warps and it's not laying flat and all those kind of things. And you got to keep the torch at the right height. If you don't, you really blast away the consumables. And with that first torch, I went through consumables by the bucket and really never got a whole lot of cutting with it. I did get a few little trinkets with it. And then also I come to learn that you have to put into your software setup for this thing to do a touch off. Every time it starts a new cut, it needs to touch off, set its height all over again, because even with your height controller, it'll wander off. It'll be too far up or too low or something. It seems to be one of those sins of the thing. That line's something I cut out with that first plasma cutter. That was a big project for it, though. That thing's about 1/8" metal. Now I also watched Tom's Techniques, which is a good place to learn things, and he had made some plans for you to make a knurling tool. And I hated the knurling tool that I have. You know, it came with a lathe. It was just one of those with the 2 stationary rollers that you just shove up against the shaft. Doesn't give terribly good results. So I made this guy, and I've got several different patterns. You can just pull these pieces out, swap in the pieces that you got the other pattern, and go for it. This guy's good for knurls up to about 1 inch, maybe a little more, but I think about 1 inch is max. One of these days I'm going to make a new one with a much larger capacity. But it works great. And then I got into a partnership with another guy, our co-op project with Engineered 3D channel, and I made this tap fixture. You pull this guy up, put your tap nut on there, and just crank away. Now I'm going to come back and modify this because the original hole is a little bit big. It was for, I think, a 1/4 inch stuff. I'm going to come through here with a hole to use this much smaller handle because it's a lot easier for me to bend it into shape there. I just hadn't got around to that yet. Basically, I did this just to do it because I really don't need it. I do most of my tapping, power tapping on the mill or the lathe. But there's jobs where you want to do this. Now, Bruno Martini over at Engineered 3D, he made the patterns, and I made the castings, and I made castings for me and castings for him. And this casting didn't come out as good as the other one, so I sent him the one that come out the best because Engineered 3D had a little fall in the sand right there, and so it doesn't say 3D. His does. So, and the writing is not wonderful because I don't have a steady hand with a paintbrush. I'm lucky I didn't get it smeared even worse. And back during the beginning days of my channel, I got into recycling plastic, and I made an extruder. There's the little power cylinder there that pushes down into the tube over there for the extruder. This is the temperature controller. And let me see if I can move this thing over where you can get a better look. That is the extruder that I made. This is where you put the plastic in and you shove it down. Here's 3 heating bands to melt it, and they're controlled by the little gray box there. I almost said black box, but it's not black. And what I make here's a couple of the knobs I've made with it. I could make other things, but knobs were handy and I needed some at the time. And I use this this mold. This screw that's up in the middle will become the screw in the thingus there. You put this on onto the mold, put a clamp on each side and then screw it onto the bottom of the extruder down there. And what you've got at that point is you've got a mold ready. You just activate this as an air switch here on the side. Let's see if you can see that. You activate this air switch here and it shoves the ram down, and then you turn it the other way and it sucks it back up, and your mold will be full of hot plastic. Unscrew it, let it cool just a little bit, pop it off of there, and get your pattern, whatever you've made out of it. It took me quite a while to work out the kinks of this thing, and I haven't made anything on it in quite a while, but the last time I tried I made some kind of bad looking knobs because I forgot not to. I went to heating that mold, and then that's not the right thing to do. You need to just leave it alone. So when I heated the mold, it made a hollow spot in the end of the knobs. Not good. I almost forgot that hydraulic press was something I made. Back in the 70s. I worked out how to do this. This is sort of a copy of an OTC press, and I copied their layout and everything. Of course, they don't use an upside down jack. They got a power arm, and I've got a chain on each side there so that I can lift the table up and down because it's heavy. When you get over 70, heavy is a lot smaller number than it used to be. But anyway, I made these back in the 70s, and I'd throw one in the back of my pickup truck and drive around to garages and motorcycle shops and lawnmower shops, and I would sell them. And then the Arab oil embargo hit, and the price of steel went up so high that I could have bought them at Big Joe from Taiwan cheaper than I could make them. So there you go. I guess that's probably the last thing that oh yeah, I forgot. While we're at it, here the other day I made that hoist. It's got wheels on the bottom, and it's got a electric hoist up there, and I calculated that if you put 1,000 pounds on it, the deflection on that bar across the top will be less than 1/4 of an inch. That's, that's the thickness of the square tubing calculated. Of course, I can't lift 1,000 pounds because that little hoist there is limited to 880 pounds. So it's way under the capacity of my hoist. I almost forgot that little bugger, didn't I? Yeah. And the hoist is adjustable so that I can make it wider and I can make it taller. Got little holes in there for bolts to support it when I make it taller or wider. And on the cross part, that orange cross part, well, yellow, it looks orange in the viewfinder here. On that cross part there, those two holes are so that I can move it way out and be sure to span a pickup truck with, And those two holes right there on the upright part, that's so I can make it taller in case the stuff in the pickup truck is taller than that. I had to keep it under 7 feet tall. I think it's like 6'10", so that I could get it out from under my garage door. Otherwise, I couldn't take it outside. And it works good. I use it in here now and then when I want to pick up something, put over on the mill table that's heavy. I just move things out of the way and pick that up and use it. Funny how you can make stuff and then forget about having done it, but there you are. I think this is the last thing I'm going to show you, whether that's the last thing I made or not. Before I go, there was a couple things I forgot. It being Mother's Day, there's no ARW discussion today. In the early in the morning, I'll devote to the steel challenge, and after lunch, I'll be devoting the rest of the day to Mother's Day, and kind of being nice to the boss lady. And there's another thing, my other channel, the Redneck Home on the Range. I was told that I was using too many terms that nobody knew what the heck they were, that I needed to explain some things. So the current video on there is 15 minutes of me explaining a bench rest rifle and how to score it and things in general that I probably don't understand. So, it's not an action video, but if you'd like to go over there and subscribe, you don't have to go back. I need about 1,000 of you guys to go over there and subscribe so that I can get the 15-minute limit removed from videos. I think that's where they'll let you make them longer. I don't remember. It's been a long time now. But go over there and subscribe. You don't ever have to go back to the channel. Just do like here. Out of the 10,000 here, about 1,000 come back and watch the videos, and the other 9,000 are just subscribed. All right? Let's go see what Bubba's doing. All right? Boudreaux and Marie got a son named T-Boy. And so he's 24 years old, and he's been living at home all this time. He hadn't got to supporting himself. We got out and got him a job or nothing. And so they're starting to worry about, his future. So Boudreaux says, we'll give him a little test, Sheriff. He says, we're going to put this $10 bill on the coffee table. We're going to put this Bible on the coffee table. And we're going to put this bottle of booze on the coffee table. He says, and we'll hide and watch from the closet. And when he comes by, if he takes the $10 bill, he's going to be a businessman. If he picks up the Bible, he's going to be a preacher. And if he takes the bottle of booze, well, he's just going to be a no-count deadbeat. So they hide in the closet, and they're looking out through the keyhole and such. And a little bit, here comes Boudreaux's son T. And he walks up to the coffee table and looks, picks up the $10 bill, stuffs it in his pocket, looks around there, picks up the Bible, stuck it under his arm, picked up the bottle of booze, takes a big swig, walked out of the room carrying the booze with him. So, Boudreaux and Marie, they've been watching this from the closet. And Boudreaux says, oh, my Sherry, he said, it's worse than I could imagine. He says, the boy's going to be a dang politician. Well, that's all, folks. Y'all try to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Leave a comment if you got something to say. And above all, remember, keep on keeping on. Bye now.